slideshow, I guess. So, and I don't have one sitting in front of me, so all I've got is this. Cassandra is my daughter, she's also on my team. She helped me to create this presentation, and this is literally just what I've done for the last 7.5 years in the buyer's consultation. I have a packet, it's the older one. I know the hub has created new stuff for presentations and consultations and such, but I've used this one that I had since I started, and Terry was my coach back then. So this had a sheet that you're going to see here in just a minute that has basically the diagram of buying a house and like how the process all works. So, so about me, I've been an agent for the last 7.5 years. I started with Keller Williams, but before that, I was a mortgage lender for about 6 years. So I was always working with buyers, so I was always pretty comfortable in real estate as an agent working with the buyer. So this was not difficult. It was just a matter of learning different forms to explain to the people. So if you ever didn't quite lose me, talk to Terry, and I'm just gonna have my challenge pressing the arrow button on here. So
I'm gonna log in so I can manage. So I'm not distracting.
okay, cool. So besides doing real estate, I worked from my home doing daycare. I raised 10 kids. Cassie is my 4th child, and she likes to be called Cassandra, so don't call her Cassie. I will get you in trouble if you do that. Okay, so the first thing that I do when I prepare my buyer consultation is that I have all the forms that I want them to sign at the consultation ready to go, and then I have that buyer consultation packet, and I've only taken 1 page from the packet, and so I'm gonna tell you, they probably have better ones right now at the hub, so don't worry about that. If you want this page that just has the diagram, I'm happy to send it to you. When I print the packet, I never go through the whole packet. I only go through that 1 diagram page, and I say, there's more details on all of this and the rest of the packet. If you want to read it, take a comment, go ahead and take a look at it. Because the things that I want to do is I want to educate them more on the process and develop a relationship with them. So the first thing that I want to do is develop rapport. And many of you probably heard of the rapport conversation, which is what is it? Family, occupation, recreation, and dreams, or you can frog. There's also frog, which is family, recreation, occupation, and goals.
Okay.
So you can forward them or frog them, whatever you want to do, but it's basically just getting to know somebody like you would, somebody you're interested in being a friend with, right? So you're asking them questions about their life and what their goals are, and what they do for work and their family, and what they like to do to, play. Do they have any vacations coming up? What's their time frame? And then you get into like more of the real estate stuff as you go along, right? Why do you want to move? Why is that important to you? And just the why questions and things that are open-ended so that they can give you more than just a yes or no answer and give you more details. Like, why is that important? I use that one a lot. Why is that important to you? Okay, so those things.
Could I get you to back up just a little bit?
Back up?
Yeah.
Is it better if I'm backed up?
Yes. We just can't move it. Thank you.
Yay, okay. That's not switching. Okay. Okay, that's where I want to be anyway. All right, can you get rid of the pictures of the cute people up there so I can see the whole thing? Okay, cool. And so this is the home buying process. Okay. Okay, the home buying process. So this slide is basically where I spend the bulk of my time in the beginning of the presentation. And so I tell them the first step is to select a real estate agent. We've got that covered. And then the next one is to obtain financing approval, which sometimes they've already talked to a lender before we get there, so the first two steps might have already been taken care of. But if not, then I'm gonna say, and I have got some great lenders I'm gonna refer you to, and they're gonna be able to guide you through all the numbers. So anytime you have a question about what your payment is gonna be, or what you qualify for, or how many closing costs you need, or anything to do with the numbers on the deal, the loan officer is the best one to talk to. And then we're gonna analyze your needs in this buyer consultation. So that's what we're doing today. We're gonna talk about that. And if you've talked to the lender already, then you already know like what price point you're comfortable with or that you qualify for. And so that's part of that, finding out what you want to do. And also, you know, we've talked about how many bedrooms and bathrooms you might need for your family, what location you're interested in. So we've kind of already talked about what you need as far as the house goes. So after this meeting, now that I have a good idea what you want, I'm gonna go into my multiple listing service and I'm gonna create a search for you. And I might need to call you and just clarify a few things while I'm doing that, but once I'm done, I'm gonna send you 2 emails. One of them's gonna be to make a connection with me on MLS. And the other one is gonna be, whatever properties are currently on MLS that fit the things that we talked about today. Now, it's really important that you open the email to make a connection with me, because without that connection, you won't get any more properties from me. If you make the connection, then as properties come on the market that are fit in the parameters that we talked about, they will be sent out to you every day by email. And so every day you'll be able to open up your email from realestate.com and you'll see that this is any properties to take a look at. Okay. So I'm gonna let you know, so will you make sure that you go in there and make a connection with me when I send you that email?
Yes.
Cool. All right. So once you get those, then you're gonna take a look and you're gonna pick out some properties that you wanna see, and we're gonna set up appointments and we're gonna go see them. Now, one of the commitments I made to my buyers is that I won't stop you from seeing homes because of my schedule. So if I already have commitments and you want to see a property at that same time, I'm going to do my best to find another real estate agent that can show you properties. So that we are not, we're getting to those properties in a timely manner for you. So you have a better chance of getting under contract if you see something that you love. Does that sound good to you?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. I learned that phrase from Nick Gonzalez. Nick used to be coaching. And I thought it was genius, because instead of saying, oh, you know, I might be busy or have family plans, so, you know, I might have to get somebody else, you know. But instead, I'm saying I'm committed to making sure that you get to see these homes on your timetable. And it's just a different way of saying it. I've never had pushback. They've always seemed really happy that I'm going to make sure that they see those properties. So that's kind of the way I phrase it. And a lot of times, the way you phrase things is what really matters more than what you're saying. You can say the same thing. If you have a spouse, you know what I'm talking about. That's supposed to get a joke.
Yes, is that directed to them?
Spouse, I said spouse, I didn't say man. Let's see, okay, so once we have property that you love and you want to write an offer, we're gonna write an offer on that property. And when that happens, there's 3 things that can happen. We can have our offer totally rejected. They can say, hey, I love this offer, I'm gonna accept it just the way it's written. And the third one is that they can say, there's some things we'd like to change about the offer, so we're gonna make a counter offer to you. The only one that you would hate, right, is the total rejection, right? You would love it if they would just accept the offer how you wrote it. And you're still in the game if they want to write a counter offer. So that's not a bad thing. I just tell them that's not a bad thing if they counter offer. It just means we still have opportunity and it's a possibility. Okay. Guess what? They accepted your offer, and now you get to start doing your due diligence and all of this other stuff. So negotiating terms in the contract before your offer is accepted, of course, is what I was talking about with the counter offer. Okay, so the net, is this still a pointer too? Is this one right here a pointer? I don't see anything pointing, so, okay. Sorry, my technology shortcomings. So they accept the contract and then there's, all these things are gonna happen. I'm gonna point at them for my benefit, but you and I were gonna go conduct the inspections on the property and make sure that we resolve any issues that are really important to you. I tell people that the purpose of the inspection is to find out if there are any major issues with the house that will cause you not to want to purchase it. And if there are, then we need to address those issues. And if you're buying an existing home, existing homes have little nicks and dings and things like that that are really not important. But the things that are important are things like the foundation and the roof and the sewer line, and if it has any type of meth in it or radon or any of that stuff. And I also have an email that I send out when it's inspection time. You can choose an inspector and I suggest different inspections be done. So those inspections plus any that the inspector might suggest, I suggest you take care of. And then we have the financing person or your loan officer is going to be going through this middle section. And they're going to make sure that you're qualifying. I don't order an appraisal. Sometimes people think I'm the one that orders it, but it goes through the loan officer. So we're going to be coordinating with them when we're ready for that appraisal to be ordered, or maybe you're going to be coordinating with them and I don't need to worry about the coordination. And you're going to get insurance. So I suggest that we're going to send an email out. You can use our insurance company, their brokerage. They have several different options to choose from and can give you quotes that'll, hopefully work well for you, or you can go to somebody that you already know that you work with already and get a quote on your insurance. But it's always good every time you're going to renew your policy to check with your insurance agent and make sure they have you covered properly and also that you are getting the best deal. Because say you have Allstate and State Farm and Farmers, one year Allstate's going to be cheaper and the next year Farmers is going to be cheaper and the next year, and somebody else is going to be cheaper. And so it's always good to just get close. Okay, then we come to title, and Marcel is here, and if you guys could see Marcel, he's like raising his hand and not happy that he's here. He's going to conduct a title search. They're going to make sure that the property is free and clear of any liens because your mortgage lender is going to take first lien position on that property. And his job is to make sure that those things are all cleared out. And then title insurance is insurance where they say, hey, we've done our due diligence, there's no liens on this, but if somehow we miss something and things come back, you have insurance and we're going to take care of it. Is that how to say that right, Marcel?
Yes.
Do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so I mean, once we pull the title agreement, we always take a look and see if there's anything that's out of the ordinary. So on a buyer's side, the seller is purchasing the owner's policy, which is insuring the buyer of any liens, divorces, judgments, boundary line issues, something that covers quite a bit. So yeah, if we see anything on there that's out of the ordinary, we'll bring them to it. As for a buyer, they're paying for the lender's policy, which is less expensive because it covers less, but it only insures the lender. So yeah, so we just kind of keep an eye on that. And the borrowers quoted that when they work with the lender as far as when the title insurance will be based off the loan.
Yeah. And that's not something we have to ask for in our contract because it's written into our contract already that the seller will purchase an Alta policy, title insurance policy, but on behalf of the buyer. So that's already there. But a lot of people don't know what title insurance is, any of that. So it's always good to explain that a little bit. And if you have more questions about how to say it or what things are covered or what Marcel does, I would say reach out to Marcel for sure at Real Advantage Title. Okay, so once all these three things happen and are done, then the fun part happens is where you actually get to get a closing date or a settlement date. So many times that we say closing, then we really mean settlement because closing doesn't really happen until everything is funded and recorded. But I'm going to probably say it's time to schedule closing, and that just means, really it means settlement, but you get keys when we're all funded and recorded. Okay, now, there is a thing about possession. Now, possession, we can write into the contract that you get possession of the property in a week, in a day, right, the day we close, in a month. We can do a lease back up to 2 months if you're getting a loan because your lender wants you to occupy that property within 60 days. And if it's cash, you can lease that property back to the person as long as you want. Marcel, did you have something else you wanted to add?
Yeah, we've done it in the past, but we want to do it again. But we're gonna do a mock closing.
Okay.
For this class, so we'll just kind of go over what's said during the closing process, just so as you're a new agent, you kind of know what's expected in that closing, because that is the time to celebrate, it's the time to be excited, you've gone through this process that you're showing here, there's a lot of ups and downs that may be there, and so really the closing is the time to celebrate. And
Right.
sense for you as the agent to pat yourself on the back for all the hard work you've done. As well, so it is the time to we schedule that, and for your clients, if they're very, obviously very excited, we have a bunch of variety of things that we can do for the clients with photos and poppers and, flutes for whatever drink you want, things like that, just to, again, make it a great experience.
Okay, awesome. Yes, so make it fun. Show up to your closings. It's a good time to seal that relationship. It's a good time before that to forewarn them that you like to take pictures of them, because sometimes they show up not so good and they're like, oh, I wish you had told me we're gonna take pictures, So just let them know you're gonna take some pictures, and the title people love to take pictures. They're probably one of the more skilled people.
So just
What do I
click,
push?
click like enter. Move the mouse to the page. I think it goes between Zoom and.
Okay, so forms, these
But
are
real
the
quick,
forms.
can I back up a little bit?
Sure.
So, sorry, will you go back to the last page?
Sure.
So the one thing I want to say, so her presentation right here is something that she could hand to her client, and we do have other buyer guides that you could use that have the exact same thing. It just looks a little different. But what I want to say, and I hope you guys caught on to this, what she just did with this diagram is an entire presentation. Like, she's gonna go over contracts and all of that stuff, but if we were to hand this to you, she read those words. She went down and said, okay, we're gonna select an agent, we're gonna talk about pre-approval, and now we're gonna analyze your needs, and now we're gonna write, like, she literally read those words. So just know this is a presentation in itself, just this one page right here. And it is in the Home Hub guides. It looks, like I said, it looks different, but if you'd like this one, I can definitely get you a copy of this one too.
Yeah, and I'm used to reading things upside down, so I literally have this in front of them, reading it upside down, pointing at it with my finger and my pen as we go along and just talking about all of it. Okay. So here's the forms that I make sure that we have, especially the top three. I don't always have the ABA, which is the one that talks about affiliate business relationships. But I always put the buyer broker agreement last, and Terry taught me this. And I stack them, so, and this have to be in this order, except for that buyer broker, I always like to have that last, because Terry taught me back in the day that if they're used to signing stuff, like, oh, okay, they don't have to sign the REPC. The REPC is what we're gonna go over, just to show them what the contract is gonna look like, and to make sure they understand it, and at least one little sentence for each little paragraph is kind of what I do, or nearly every paragraph. And then when due diligence has to be signed for our files, so that's the first one that they're gonna sign. That's like a 2.5 page document. So we just go through, and I don't go through everything, which I'll show you how I do it here in a minute. But the thing is to get them signing, and then once you get to the buyer broker agreement, they're like, but she knows so much. I have to use her. Why would be lost without Lisa, right? So we had, and then I might have had 2 times where people did not sign that agreement, and all the time that I've done this. So it works well. And if you act like you expect it and it's a normal thing, like, don't be apologetic about any of it. You're a professional. When you ask for their phone number, their email, all of that contact information, don't apologize. Just say, okay, what's your phone number, what's your email? You know, sign here, you need to initial the bottom of this page, you need to sign that last page and also initial the last page. And then check the forms and make sure they've done everything they need to do, so that's kind of what I do. Okay, so the real estate purchase contract is the one we're gonna go over, and if it's okay if I stand here, because I don't think I can read this without being in the center of everything, okay. I can just use my cursor, right? Okay, so this first section, here's what I do. Like this first section talks about who the parties are and the earnest money. Do you guys understand what earnest money is? And they'll say, I've heard of that before, or if they bought a house, of course they have, right? Oh, another note, if they have already bought a house and it hasn't been that long, I probably won't do the diagram. I will just jump into the rep C and say, hey, the rep Cs are always changing a little bit. I want to make sure you understand what's in the contract that you're going to be writing. And so I'm kind of doing the buyer consult off of the rep C for somebody that's already more experienced. Because it goes through all of that. It goes through your due diligence, your appraisal, all of those things are in this rep C nearly. And so that is kind of, because I feel like it's kind of rudimentary to do that with somebody that you feel like is very experienced in purchasing properties. Okay, go ahead. Terry's gonna comment.
I got something to say about that.
Okay,
No, I was just gonna say, I have found that it's the exact opposite. And number one, I've never seen anybody do a presentation on the rep C, so I think that's genius. But what I would say is I have worked with people who have bought 10 homes and they sit down with me, and I had it recently just happened. I did a full buyer presentation, went through just that complete diagram, and she was blown away. She's like, I have bought 10 homes and nobody has ever explained the process to me.
okay, that's
So-
my limiting belief. apparently.
Yeah, but I'm just, for everybody listening, it makes you stand out. People do not do this. People do not do a presentation. And this alone is gonna cost someone to hire you because you're explaining all of this, so.
Right. So anyway, I explain how earnest money works, and then I say one of my jobs is to make sure I protect your earnest money. So, I'm gonna make sure, like, I've never lost anybody's earnest money before, unless they knew they were gonna lose it and they decided to do that anyway because they let the deadlines pass. So that was not my fault, but that was their conscious decision to lose that earnest money. And so my job is to make sure that I keep that and that I keep you on track with all of these deadlines in the contract, or there's several deadlines that we're gonna go through. This is the next section, is talks about the property. This looks so weird up here. And okay, and what's included and what's not included. So things like the most common things I see is people taking the curtains or the curtain rods down and taking them with them when that's actually supposed to be part of the deal. They can't pick up their planch that they got for their 5th anniversary and take it with them unless they exclude it, right? So those kinds of things, anything that's permanently affixed to the property, they need to keep on the property unless we exclude it in a contract. And then, of course, the appliances are negotiable unless they're built in and considered part of that, like the refrigerators are usually freestanding. So we'll make sure we include that. And you notice they have check boxes here. So I like to check the boxes, and then there's another line. I also like to check that box and add them in on that line too, because not everybody notices checks. But they usually read that other line and see what the extra stuff is that they're supposed to leave on the property. And then 1.3 down here says what they're excluding. So sometimes people they made these special curtains for their baby's nursery and they want to take them with them, and they'll exclude that kind of stuff. Or maybe some things that might be ambiguous, like if they have a shop in the back that is just one of those pop-up plastic things that you think is supposed to stay and they think they're going to take, then they can, just define them actually taking that little pop-up building. On water service 1.4, if we're going to exclude any water rights or anything, that's where we would put that. And on 2, we have the purchase price. So this line is the first line that we are going to show how much we're offering on the property. And then this line on A, 2A, is where the earnest money goes. And that's going to match our earnest money line up here. And then if you are getting an FHA loan and putting like 3.5% down, I'm going to calculate that. And I'm gonna say, okay, your new loan balance is gonna be approximately this, and as long as these lines here match up on 2.1 E. No, D, that must be D. Then, oh, sorry, it's F, right, the bottom line there. That line is gonna match this line. Sometimes people don't know how to add. Sometimes because the FHA loan has an extra mortgage insurance added, they don't actually know what the balance of the loan is gonna be, and if they put that on there, it wouldn't add up anyway. So what I'm saying is everything in between earnest money and actual purchase price on that section is variable. So don't stress about that part too much. And the only reason you need to notify anybody that you're changing plans is if you go from a conventional loan to like a government loan, then there's an extra addendum that the buyer or the seller has to approve, and so then we would have to notify them and send them that addendum to sign, and they would have to agree with it. So no stress about that section. As you notice down here in 2.2, this is or is not little checkbox areas. Let me see, I should need to do this, right? You guys see those? These little checkbox areas. Okay,
It's hard to see.
okay. It's usually is not, but sometimes, well, so if you don't have a property to sell, we're gonna check this box, it's not. Because there's no sale of a property that has to happen in order for you to buy something. So I'm just really just explaining all the areas. You guys want me to explain this thoroughly to you in this class or not?
Explain that section.
The whole REPC, like how I would
You
go
don't
over
need
it
to,
with
we
client.
actually just had a class on that, but it's up to them, I guess.
Okay,
I would like to see you go through the buyer broker agreement, because I think that's like where a lot of people have questions right now,
okay,
and how you would explain it.
okay, I can do that. Okay, before we move off of this, is there anything that you guys would like me to go over on this part? On the REPC that you have questions on? Maybe you didn't quite understand when you went over it last time, but you forgot something. Are we good to go on?
Yep, I don't see any questions.
Okay. Well, so I'm just basically explaining this and explaining their deadlines and how I'm gonna make sure that they don't lose their earnest money, and that this seller deadline is for the seller to deliver the documents, and if they don't come through for some reason and you want to easy out, you can withdraw, right? Due diligence is your deadline, and you have to make sure you get everything done and negotiate within that deadline. Okay.
And I love that you're showing this to your buyer in the presentation. Because that contract is pretty intimidating, so if they are thinking they're gonna do this without you, having them see what you just went through is gonna really, again, cause them to go, maybe I can't do this without an agent.
Yeah,
So I love.
and I don't leave that REPC with anybody. I take it with me. Yeah, I take all the forms with me because I have to scan them and send them back to them. And, yeah, I don't leave that. So. Okay, so here's the due diligence checklist. Are you guys familiar with this? Have you guys reviewed it lately?
We have a lot of new people on here, so
Okay.
go ahead and review it.
Okay, so the buyer due diligence checklist, this basically tells you a bunch of things that you can have checked out on the property. It's probably not everything that you could ever check out on the property, but it's just a form to give you information and a guide. And if you notice this part, this notice from the company and the top, it's basically saying like, I am not an inspector, I'm not a tax advisor. You need to get professionals in here to do these inspections. I had one lady one time, only one lady that, well, maybe more when we were in crazy times as far as inspections, but the first time anybody ever refused to do an inspection, she was just going around, she had me open it up and she was going around and started the dishwasher and, you know, she was trying to do basically her own inspection, but she wasn't a qualified person. So just get a qualified person because you don't want to come into any issues. So that's basically what I tell. And I don't really go over all of this, but well, I do kind of like zoning. If you wanted to use this for anything but your primary residence, like you want to run a business in it, you should probably double check and make sure that's okay with the city. That kind of stuff. So And then we get free radon gas tests through Utah Radon for you. So as soon as we go under contract, my assistant Cassandra, she's gonna order that. And hopefully if they have time to get it within our due diligence deadline, they'll do it for free. And if not, we might have to have the inspector do it and you might have to pay $150 for that. Okay, so all of this stuff, and it's like, you know, basically that inspector is gonna do the physical condition of the property, and then they're gonna advise you on certain things, like if they saw issues on the roof, they might suggest you get a roofer out there to look at it. That kind of stuff. And I try to get my inspectors out there as soon, early on in the process as possible in case we run into any issues, and in case you want to do like a meth test or mold test or things that take extra time to get back. And then you just need to sign here, okay? And then the wire fraud form, I actually make them read all of these. I say, you know what, this is so short and it's so important. I just want to make sure you read this form. We have to have this signed by everybody that works with us, so go ahead and read it and then make sure you sign a date at the bottom. I don't present it. I just tell them we've had people that have lost money through wire fraud because these people are really talented at tricking us into the amount of account information. And then this form, the affiliate business arrangement disclosure is basically, we are associated with Marcel, with the title company, where we have like the lending company. We have
Insurance.
the lending company, you know, we have these companies that we're affiliated with, and this is just a disclosure that we have them. You're not obligated to use any of these companies, but we have to disclose that we have them. So sign that. Okay, buyer broker agreement. This is the exciting part. Okay,
If you've fallen asleep, wake up. This is the most important document right now. This is the hot topic in real estate world right now. This is where the NAR, all these buzzwords you're hearing of, it's coming from this document. So
Yeah.
please ask lots of questions.
okay. So this document, you are getting them to agree to work with you, to be your buyer, their buyer agent, right? So I've just matter of factly gone through this document and I've had times where, they don't really even want to go through it. They don't have time. They just want to sign it. I say, okay. The biggest question people have is on this obligation to pay. So let's just talk about that. On our multiple listing service in the past, we have had, a field that tells what the offer of compensation is to the brokerage that brings a buyer for the listing, right? And as of this moment, it's still like that. And come August, it's going to change to where they can't advertise that anymore. So we'll just have to find out what that is on the listings that you want to make offers on. And then the rest of that will be your obligation to pay. So if I generally charge like a 3% fee to represent a buyer, and they are offering a 2.5% fee, then you'll have 0.5% to come up with. And a lot of the lenders are allowing that to be financed in your loan. Or you can pay that out of your own pocket, however you like to do that. So that's kind of how, I haven't presented it that way yet, but that's pretty much the conversation that's going to need to happen. And we should start having that same conversation. I basically said, we get paid from the other party. And I used to say I've never had to have a buyer pay me. But that sounds like it's going to be changing. And I did have a deal with last year, I had a deal where I was selling a condo and the agent actually was already doing that. And he said he was under contract for 3% with his buyers and that they would have to come up with the money that they didn't have to pay him if my sellers didn't agree to 3%. So we worked it out. The sellers paid the extra 0.5%. That was the difference. And they were able to go under contract. So it was his normal and he never had an issue with it, so. I'm going into that for us old timers that are used to different, it might be a little scary, but maybe for you guys where it's new, it's just normal, right? So just learn the normal. Any questions on that?
Does anybody have any questions? There's got to be a question. I mean, I would say the biggest question, and I'm in the same boat with you, I have not had to have this conversation yet, and it is time to start having that conversation because they could be buying a home in 60 days from now, and this could change. So if somebody were to say to you, well, I was told I don't have to pay a buyer's agent, I was told I don't have to work with an agent, how do you feel like you're gonna address like we're being told you cannot get into a home unless they have a buyer broker with you now, we should not be showing houses at all, which I would say, for many years, that's been our practice. However, now it's like, I don't know if the word is illegal, but it's pretty strongly suggested that we cannot show a home without this. So how would you explain that? If the buyer said to you,
Well, by the time they've agreed to meet with me, they've decided they're gonna use an agent, in my opinion. I mean, maybe not, but it would be odd for them to want to meet with an agent and then not want to use an agent. So, well, talking about agent value, I think we would have kind of expressed that value already through the Rep C and the rest of the consultation. Like, what was your question again? Like,
no, I think you're right. I mean, I think what you're saying is right. If they are planning to meet with you, I think this really goes to show why you should be meeting with people. I'm just wondering if you feel like you'll get to a point where, yes, they're willing to meet with you, but then when you get to this point, they're like, ooh, I don't, I'm not sure if I want to pay for a buyer's agent.
sure. I mean, and when they talk about NAR settlement and they ask me questions, because now on the listing appointments I've had, the sellers are asking me, oh, I heard this and I heard that. And I say, oh, you know what? The good thing is that Utah is more on top of it than other states, and they've already implemented things where they're disclosing how much money would go to a buyer's agent in their listing contract anyway. And we've always had to have a buyer broker agreement signed before we go under contract, before we write a contract for anybody. So the only change on that part is that before I show you a home, I have to have that signed instead of waiting at any time afterward, which I've usually done before anyway, unless somebody calls and they're like, I need to go see this house in an hour. Then I'm just like, I will show the house, right? If I haven't, like somebody that I know out of the blue calls. But now I have to have this signed ahead of time. So all I have to do is get on my computer, shoot it over in DocuSign and have them sign it. And if they, and just tell them, okay, well, if you don't get this house, are you still gonna be interested in buying a house? They say yes, put TBD on the address. And if they say no, I only do it if I get this house, you put TBD anyway. Or you can, or there's very like, I'm only gonna do it with the address on there, put the address of the house. And then have them sign it. They might want to negotiate your percentage to pay with you. I've always taken like whatever's on the MLS, and I always would tell them, unless it's too low, then I will ask for your help in negotiating more commission with the seller in the contract. And I always just say that so that they have a heads up, like if it's, it's usually 2.5% to 3%, but if it's really low, I'm gonna ask for your help so that I can get paid. Or if you want, you can just pay me too. Those are your options, basically, right? Yeah. So that's kind of how I do that. I like to add in this 2.2, it kind of explains it a little better. It says, if the property acquired by the buyer is listed with a brokerage on the multiple listing service, the buyer brokerage compensation, the BBC, paid to the company by the listing brokerage shall satisfy the buyer's obligation for the brokerage fee shown above, provided that the BBC is equal to or more than the amount shown above. In the event the BBC is less than the brokerage fee or any compensation offered by the listing brokerage property owner to the company is less than the brokerage fee, the buyer may negotiate with the property owner and or listing brokerage to satisfy the buyer's remaining obligation to pay the brokerage fee. Buyer shall pay any remaining difference at closing in absence of any agreement with the property owner and or listing brokerage. The buyer shall pay the brokerage fee of the. That's in there now, it used to be in there. That I would call. Okay, so. So anyway, to me, it hasn't been hard to overcome the seller's objections, and I haven't run into any buyer objections on anything yet. Because we still have the MLS and haven't really had to deal with it. But that would be kind of my language with them. Now, keep in mind that if you're saying I'm gonna get paid 3%, I'm not sure if you can negotiate that down if the seller's only willing to pay 2.5. Can you?
Well, I don't think we have an exact answer yet. My understanding is that in this section, you want it to be more rather than less. So what I've been told is if you agree up front with your buyer, oh, let's just put 2% in here, and the MLS or the seller is offering 3%, you cannot take 3%. You can only take what is written in this contract. So this is where a couple of our brokers have said this. You'll probably see this go up. You'll probably see people putting 4 or 5% in here. That way they can negotiate higher if that's possible. And then it does say in here that you can do an agreement with the buyer outside of this to be satisfied. So if you get 3% and this says 4%, you're fine to take 3. But you can't go the other way, is my understanding.
Okay, so you can bring it down, but you can't.
We can bring it
up.
down, but we can't go up.
Okay, that's perfect. Okay. Because then you can be competitive in any of the offers, really, right?
Yep.
Okay,
It's all negotiable, and I think that's the biggest thing with this and even the seller one. And it's in all capitals right there, 2.3. Brokerage fees are not set by any board or association of realtors or MLS or any manner between the company and the buyer. So I think the biggest, for me, a script would just be all commissions are negotiable. And
Yeah.
this is what I charge. So we need to get rid of any verbiage that says, oh, the standard commission is this, or all commission is always 6%, things like that, because that's just not true. Everything is negotiable.
yeah, and I don't think I've ever said the standard commission is this. I always say I charge 3%. And you can charge whatever you want to charge. You don't have to, it's not a 3% all across the board. It's whatever you want. I know years ago, somebody used to put whatever, like the BAC section of the MLS, whatever that is, that's what they would take. Well, you can't do that anymore because it's not going to be on MLS anymore. So. Okay, go down to 3 where there's a protection period.
I have a question. What if you're looking, I'm sure some sellers are gonna try to really lean into this. What if you're looking at properties and it's like 1% or 0.5%, right? Make the seller's agent is just being that way, or they're being really pressed by the sellers to not offer the buyer's agent anything.
Yeah, well, then at that point, you just, you find out what that offering is. And you let your buyers know, this is what they're offering on the commission. Which means you have the choices of, and they're not willing to, suppose they're not willing to negotiate it, right? So you have a choice to, pay out of pocket the difference between our agreement and what the seller's offering. Or you could have your lender cover that in your loan. What would be another option? Is there another option on there? Or I can negotiate down my percentage, I suppose. And I probably wouldn't want to go to 1%, but you know.
Is the question, how we're gonna handle the buyer or how we're gonna handle the seller? Oh, okay. Yeah.
So,
Choose another class.
Yes.
yeah. So, and that may deter them if they don't have the money and they want to make sure that you get paid from work, and they might feel that the seller's being unreasonable. It's not all like you're the bad guy or anything, because they want to make sure you get paid. They see the value that you offer and they're like, well, that's really unreasonable. I don't want to work with somebody that's unreasonable. I'd rather go find another house. So. Okay, protection period, I usually put 2 months in there, and I just explained to them that we have a date on this where it expires, and say like, we never found a house. It's a month after this expires, so say it's January 15th, and this house that we showed you came back on the market and it's available and you're like, I wanna buy that house. This just means that I can still represent you. If that happens. That's what I tell them. So I say it in a positive way, not like now you have to pay me because we're still under a protection period. I don't say it that way. Just means I can still represent. And number 4, you're warranting or telling me that you have not entered into any other exclusive buyer broker agreement with any other brokerage. And why is that important? That's important because if they have, then they may be sued for that commission by the other agent or brokerage, whoever would be doing that, right? Agency relationships, I like to make a joke out of this one because I have to be loyal, obedient, loyal and obedient, and I kind of like joke that it's like your pet, right? I'm like your pet. I have to be loyal and obedient. I tell you everything and, you know, take good care of you and all of that. And so I kind of laugh when I do that one. I say like, this is all about you. The only time I can't disclose everything to you is if we were in like a limited agency agreement. Or the only time I can't be obedient to you is if you want me to hide something from the other party that is important to disclose, right? So yes, I'm gonna be obedient, I'm gonna be loyal and all of that, but I have to do it within the realms of being ethical. So,
Old car, right?
what?
Yep.
Acro's old car.
Oh, I don't know what that is.
Oh,
Old car, so like O is the O,
Obedient.
loyalty is the L,
L.
disclosure is the D,
C.
C is confidentiality.
A is the. Oh, wait.
What is A? And then R is reasonable care. So yeah,
What is it? Accounting.
accounting. So yeah, all the money that is
Oh, okay.
brought into the deal. So old car is the acronym for what our duties
Yeah.
are to be an agent.
Okay, and then I tell them what limited agency is, and I say there's 2 ways to have limited agency, and all it means is you'd have to sign another form. One way is that if we find a house that is my listing and you want to buy it, and I wind up representing both you and the seller, then I am limited a little bit in this because I can't give away their negotiating power or your negotiating power, right? So that would limit me. The other way is that if we are from the same brokerage and we share a principal broker and say, I go to my principal broker talking about your deal, and then the other party goes and talks about your deal, and then they know both sides, right? So they are limited as well. So then we would just have you sign the form, and then our job is to make sure that that just works out and we have a harmonious transaction. Professional advice, so I am not, like we talked about in the due diligence stuff, like I'm not an HVAC specialist, I'm not a plumber, I'm not an electrician, I'm not the title agent, I'm not the lender, I'm a real estate agent, so you need to go for professional advice to the professionals that are in those areas. And dispute resolution, it's gonna go to mediation first, and then if you can't resolve it through that, then it could go to attorneys, but I say usually the first thing actually that happens is it goes to the principal brokers. And if they can figure it out, then there's no need to worry about hiring mediators. But if it did go to attorneys, then the party that wins is entitled to reasonable attorney fees. Okay, and then buyer authorizations. We're gonna disclose to the MLS the details about the transaction, like what type of loan you got, what you paid, and how much the seller paid on your behalf to get this closed. This is whether or not there's any attachments to this, which there usually are not. We cannot discriminate because there's laws against that. Anything in the transaction that is sent through electronic means is considered original. And some houses that have, most houses that have a mortgage on them, the mortgages have what's called a due on sale clause. So if you're trying to buy a house that is seller finance, it's possible that that loan that's on the house could become due and payable, and it could create issues for you down the road. That being said, there are several finance deals that are very successful, but that's just a disclosure we have to tell you. Okay, this entire agreement, including the buyer broker or the due diligence checklist and the wirecard form, all of those things are part of our agreement. And it's effective the date that you sign it. So go ahead and sign right here and date it. I already have your address and phone number, so you don't have to fill that out. And then I will sign it, and then I'll make sure you don't forget to do the initials at the bottom of the page. That's it.
Awesome. And now you've been hired.
And now I've been hired, okay. So they always want to know what the next steps are. So the next steps, so if they haven't been pre-approved, the next step is I'm gonna connect you with my lender and make sure you ask all your questions. This person has been in business a long time, they know what they're doing. They can give you options, possibly depending on your situation, of different types of loans and different programs that might work for you. And I'll be working closely with your lender through the whole transaction to make sure things go smoothly and that we're both on the same page of what we can offer and how things are gonna work out. And what kind of closing costs we might need in that step. We talked about this already, but I'm gonna go and start and create that property search for you that we talked about. And remember, what are you supposed to do when I let you know that the emails went over?
Connect with you.
Connect with me. Exactly.
Accept the connection.
Yes, okay. And then we've talked about a lot of things today, and you might have questions. Is there anything that you can think of that you want me to explain better or that you have questions about?
So I'm gonna pretend I'm the buyer, because I didn't hear this. So, how much money do I need for like earnest money or like my home inspection? Did you cover that?
I did not cover that. Good point. Okay. We try to stay away from saying the word standard, but a lot of times we look at a 1% earnest money as acceptable in our business. Now, if you don't have 1%, you offer what you can do, right? It's not a must. It's in no way an obligation to offer that amount. Some people will offer huge amounts of earnest money in order to get the deal, so it just strengthens an offer when you do that. And what was the other one? The earnest money?
Home inspection.
The home inspection.
Do I have to pay
Yes.
for that?
So besides the money that you will need for earnest money, you will also need money for the home inspection. That is different money than the earnest money, because the earnest money is gonna go toward your contract, toward your purchase. It's not money you're gonna lose. So that money is gonna go toward your closing costs or your down payment, and in some cases, if you're doing a 100% loan, the lender may actually get that money back for you. So that's how the earnest money can work. The inspection money is extra money you're just gonna spend in order to make sure that you've got a house, that it's a good house. It's very well worth the money. It could cost you anywhere from like $300 to $1,000 or more, depending on what types of inspections you hire the inspectors to do. So just be aware that you're not getting that inspection money back. It's due and payable at the time you do the inspections, and it does not go toward your purchase.
Do you guys on Zoom have any, anything that you think a buyer might say to you during a buyer presentation? Anything you're hesitant, like, oh gosh, I don't want them to ask me this at the end, that we can cover for you?
What do you say if they ask about like a la carte services? Like, how do you go about that?
Like a la carte services for a buyer?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit more about that,
Like I've been fishing around trying to like create a list of like what to charge people when they ask me like, hey, what about for just this service? Like, what do you generally charge for like certain services? Like,
I have never offered a la carte services to buyers. So there are people that I've thought about implementing this for sellers, is having a schedule of services for them on that side. But for buyers, like if you're taking around and writing offers, like I'm not gonna take somebody around unless I'm gonna write their offer. I don't really enjoy showing homes that much anymore. So if they just want somebody to show them a house, then, I can refer somebody to them.
Awesome, thank you.
I think it's a really good question, Cody. I think we're definitely gonna be hearing that, and I think it's good for everybody to start thinking about your menu of services. I do agree with Lisa, and we're old timers, so it's hard for us to think this way, but I love that you are, because we are kind of going into a new realm. So I think it will happen more on sellers, but on buyers, I think it would be like, yeah, how many hours of showing homes, or will you be the one? What if I find a house myself? And so we are gonna have to be prepared to answer some of those questions. I would answer it as I'm full service. I'm a full service broker and I charge for full service, and kind of stick to that, but
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, that could definitely be a question.
Awesome, thank you, ladies.
Yeah, what I've noticed on the seller side is that people are saying, okay, and this is one of the agents at this Fort Union office. She has a schedule of services for her sellers. It starts at 8% and goes down to 7% and then down to 6%. And I said, does this work? Do you get 8%? And she's like, no, but it usually have no argument when it gets to 6%.
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of a joke. What do you charge for commission? Or will you negotiate your commission? Sure. Would you like 7, 8, or 9? Because we're so used to people wanting to come down, but if you throw back at them, yeah, I'm always willing to negotiate. I'm happy to charge 7 or 8%. What would you like?
Yeah.
Yes, if you want to pay me more, that's great.
I-
Another tactic that I've used before is like taking whatever percentage that I don't need that percentage, right? And I will also put like a TC fee on there. I select $350 as a fee plus 6% or whatever. And sometimes, like if these are repeat clients, I might want to give them a deal. I might want to make them super happy. I have that already pre-printed when I go, and then I just say, hey, you know what? You're such good clients and have referred me business. Like, I'm not going to charge you the TCP. I'm going to take this down to 5.5 or 5%. Is that okay with you? They've never said no.
No.
And it makes them smile. They're so happy. You could also start with 7% and say, you know what, there are agents that charge 8%, 7%. I've charged before, but for you guys, mark that off, and I'm only going to charge you 6%. Is that okay? So getting in the psychological mindset that you, and it's a negotiation, right? I have a friend that said that's had people want to pay her more. Like, I've never had anybody tell me that, but I've never set them up for that either, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you want to pay me more, that's okay. Go ahead and write down what extra you want to pay me, and we'll just include it as part of the deal. Yeah. Like, okay. All right. Any other questions, guys? Okay, this is my daughter Cassandra. She's working with you guys too. She is my TC and my admin. She made this beautiful slide presentation for me. When I sit down with my buyers or sellers, I remind them that I have a TC that will be sending all the documentation back and forth, and I want them to keep her on the emails that go back and forth, and we'll also have a group chat or group text that will include her as well, so that she can stay up to date on things. And she will help you with scheduling inspections and things like that. So I do that, and I think I have one more slide, didn't I?
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about, so in the Home Hub guide, there are a couple sections for your team and your preferred vendors and things like that. So when it comes to your team, if you're thinking, I'm a solo agent, I don't have a team, you actually do have a team of people. So your TC definitely is going to be one. There's a different TC in every office, so we can help you come up with who that is. But that's a part of your team. And I love what Lisa said, like, give them a warning, because if they get an email from Cassandra or Michelle or Corey or any of the TCs, that's gonna confuse them. So it's important that they know. And then I also include my title person and my lenders. Just that way, if they, you know, if Marcel is reaching out saying, hey, I need your social security number because I need your mortgage payoff, that's gonna alarm people. So I like the heads up
Yeah.
front at the presentation, like, here's a few people you're gonna hear from through the process.
And
They're
that
all
might,
part of my team.
yeah, and that might fit well when you go over that affiliated business.
Yeah.
Disclosure and just say yes, and we use Marcel with Real Advantage Title. Unless you have a friend that works in title and you'd rather use them, that's fine too.
Yep.
And they usually say, I have no idea anybody that works in that. Marcel wins the deal every time. Yeah, so that's kind of how I handle that. And yes, we just made this slide this afternoon, and so I could have included Marcel on here and my lenders on here. That's a great idea, but yeah, that's how we handle that. Okay, any other questions?
Any questions, guys? Anything else regarding buyers that we can pick her brain on? She works with a lot of buyers. I don't know if you still do. I know you said you still work with quite a few buyers.
Boy, it's been really slim this year for buyers.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you, Lisa. We appreciate you doing this for us.
You're welcome.
Have a good night, you guys. We will see you tomorrow at 8:30 in the morning, or tomorrow your team meetings are at 11. So if you can jump on Zoom, if you can't make it, we'd love to see you tomorrow.
Thank you, ladies. This was fabulous. Absolutely.
You
You're
can
welcome.
reach out to me with any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.